You could hear the collective gasp echo across Cleveland and beyond. The Browns were locked in a preseason matchup against the Los Angeles Rams, the perfect stage to showcase their rookie phenom, Shedeur Sanders. The clock was ticking down. The stakes weren't about wins or losses, but about evaluation, growth, and a chance to prove who really deserves to lead this team into the future. Sanders had been electric all game. Crisp reads, laser throws, pocket poise well beyond his years. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Everything you want in a franchise quarterback. And just when fans thought they were about to see their rookie carve up a defense in a high-pressure 2-minute drill, head coach Kevin Stefanski made a move that sent shockwaves through the entire football world. He pulled Shedeur off the field, and in his place, Dillon Gabriel. Now, let's be clear, this wasn't about rest. Sanders wasn't hurt, wasn't gassed, wasn't failing. He was thriving. He had been the best quarterback on the field all night. He had dominated training camp. He had already separated himself from veterans and other rookies. And still, at the most crucial moment of the game, the exact kind of situation where you test your future franchise quarterback, he was benched. Fans weren't just disappointed. They were outraged. And it didn't take long for that outrage to catch fire. Twitter lit up. Instagram flooded. TikTok exploded. The hashtag #FreeShedeur was born in real time, and within hours it was trending nationwide. Because people weren't just seeing this as a coaching decision. They were seeing it for what it really looked like. Sabotage. Why else would you take out your best player at the most important moment of the night? Why else would you deny Shedeur the very reps he needs to sharpen himself for the regular season? Why else would you replace him with a quarterback who hadn't shown nearly the same command or upside? The answer, many believe, lies not in football, but in politics. See, this is the Browns we're talking about. A franchise notorious for dysfunction, for chewing up talent and spitting it out, for sabotaging itself at every turn. And word quickly spread. This wasn't about Shedeur's performance. This was about ownership, about front office politics, about protecting their investments in Dillon Gabriel, a higher draft pick, and in Joe Flacco, the aging veteran they're desperate to sell as a stabilizing presence. Translation? They don't want Shedeur to succeed too quickly. They don't want him to leapfrog the guys they've already committed money and pride to. They'd rather bench him in front of the entire world than admit they've found their answer in the 5th round. And fans? They're not buying it. They don't care about draft status. They don't care about ownership's fragile egos. They care about winning. They care about seeing the best player on the field. And right now, that player is Shedeur Sanders. The ripple effects were immediate. In the locker room, players were visibly shaken. Some rolled their eyes on the sidelines. Others muttered under their breath. And in post-game interviews, the tension was impossible to ignore. Sure, they kept professional, but the subtext was clear. They wanted Shedeur out there, not Gabriel. Because players know. They see the practices. They see the huddles. They know who gives them the best chance. And when the coaching staff deliberately benches that player, trust starts to crack. The message is loud and clear. This isn't about merit. This is about politics. And once that poison seeps into a locker room, it's hard to get rid of. The fan base? They've had enough. Cleveland fans are loyal to a fault, but loyalty has limits. They've suffered through years of mediocrity, years of dysfunction, years of the same tired storylines. Shedeur Sanders was supposed to be the fresh start, the new hope, the reason to finally believe. And now, just weeks into his NFL journey, they're watching their team deliberately hold him back. The anger is boiling over. Ticket holders are threatening boycotts. Merch sales tied to Sanders are being withheld until he starts. Social media is swamped with fans saying they won't watch another Browns game until Shedeur is given a job outright. What Stefanski and the front office thought would be a small, controllable move has turned into a wildfire. And it's not just about Cleveland anymore. National media picked this story up immediately. Analysts who normally couldn't care less about a Browns preseason game were suddenly leading their shows with one headline. Why isn't Shedeur playing? Pundits across networks are calling it sabotage. Columnists are calling it malpractice. Some are even calling it the moment the Browns lost their locker room for good. But through it all, one person has kept his cool. Shedeur Sanders himself. No tantrums. No eye rolls on the sideline. No passive-aggressive comments in the press. Just professionalism. Just maturity. Just a calm, focused demeanor of a quarterback who knows he's doing everything right, and that the storm around him isn't his fault. That professionalism has only made the contrast sharper. On one side, you've got a rookie handling himself like a 10-year veteran. On the other, you've got a coaching staff and ownership group fumbling every decision. It's become a microcosm of everything wrong with the Browns, and maybe even the NFL. Too often, politics outweigh performance. Draft position matters more than production. Contracts matter more than chemistry. Ego matters more than merit. And when that happens, the fans lose. The players lose. The sport loses. Let's not forget the economics here. If the Browns think this controversy will blow over, they're in for a rude awakening. Fans are already pulling back. Attendance will dip. TV ratings will slide. Sponsors will start to ask tough questions. The NFL isn't immune to fan power, and the hashtag #FreeShedeur movement is proving it. Fans aren't just complaining anymore. They're withholding their wallets. And nothing gets ownership's attention faster than bleeding revenue. This is the crossroads. This is the moment where the Browns can either admit their mistake and unleash Shedeur Sanders, or they can double down on dysfunction. One path leads to hope, energy, ticket sales, and maybe, finally, winning football. The other leads to another lost season, another fractured locker room, another national laughingstock headline. The choice seems obvious, but this is Cleveland. And if history has taught us anything, it's that obvious choices aren't their specialty. Still, there's something different about this one. This isn't just another botched decision. This isn't just another bad draft pick or another washed-up veteran experiment. This is bigger. This is a generational talent being held hostage by politics. This is a fan base finally reaching its breaking point. This is players, media, and supporters uniting under one demand: free Shedeur. And maybe, just maybe, that's what it will take. Maybe the roar of the crowd, the pressure of social media, the weight of national attention will finally force the Browns to do what they should have done from the start. Put their best quarterback on the field and let him play. Because if they don't, if they keep sabotaging their own future, then this won't just go down as a preseason controversy. It'll go down as a moment the Browns lost everything: trust, credibility, and maybe even Shedeur Sanders himself. And if that happens, don't be surprised if Sanders eventually finds himself thriving somewhere else, while Cleveland is left once again staring into the abyss of what could have been. So what do you think? Was this just a bad call in a meaningless preseason game? Or was it the smoking gun proof that the Browns are sabotaging themselves yet again? Should Shedeur Sanders already be the starter, or will Cleveland's obsession with politics and pride cost them their future? Drop your thoughts, because this isn't just a football story anymore. It's a full-blown scandal. And trust me, this is only the beginning. Because the Shedeur Sanders saga isn't just a controversy anymore. It's turning into a Shakespearean-level drama, complete with betrayal, pride, and a fan base on the verge of open revolt. What Kevin Stefanski and the Browns did during that preseason game against the Rams wasn't just a bad call. It was a kind of decision that ripples outwards, infecting every part of the organization, every corner of the league, and even the national conversation about fairness, merit, and what fans actually deserve. Think about the stage that night. The Browns have been riding the Shedeur Sanders hype train all offseason. Training camp? He dominated. Preseason practices? He looked like a vet. Players were raving about him. Media members were calling him the surprise of the draft. And fans were already picturing him as the savior Cleveland has been praying for since forever. And then, under the bright lights, with a chance to prove that all the hype was more than just smoke, he shows up. He executes. He leads. He shines. This wasn't some rookie stumbling over his shoelaces. This was Shedeur Sanders showing everyone he was ready. And then, at the exact moment that could have sealed it, that 2-minute drill, the moment where you see who's got ice in their veins, they yank him. They strip him of the opportunity. They hand the reins to Dylan Gabriel, a quarterback who hadn't shown a fraction of what Shedeur had. And just like that, everything implodes. You could feel the betrayal instantly. Fans in the stands groaned, some outright booed. On TV, the commentators didn't even try to hide their confusion. And online, social media detonated. The hashtag #FreeShedeur hashtag wasn't just a meme, it was a war cry. Because people weren't just mad at the decision. They felt lied to. They felt robbed. They'd invested their hope, their excitement, their money into Shedeur, and the organization had slammed the door shut on them. This is where it gets nasty. Because this isn't just about Stefanski making a questionable coaching choice. This reeks of something bigger. Organizational politics, front office meddling, the invisible hands pulling strings in ways that make no sense on the field, but every bit of sense in the boardroom. Reports started leaking almost immediately. Ownership prefers Joe Flacco for his experience. They like Dylan Gabriel because of the draft capital they spent on him. Translation? It's not about who's best. It's about who fits their narrative. And here's where the sabotage theory picks up steam. If Shedeur Sanders balls out, if he wins the job outright, what does that say about the decisions made by ownership and front office? What does that say about their so-called strategy, their high draft picks, their insistence on leaning on veterans? It exposes them. It humiliates them. It proves that a fifth-round rookie with undeniable talent is better than the players they've invested their pride and their money into. And in the NFL, egos are as big as stadiums. So instead of letting Sanders shine, they clipped his wings. Instead of giving him the moment to cement his place, they shoved him aside. And the message couldn't be clearer. In Cleveland, politics beats performance. Now, let's talk about the locker room. Because while fans are furious, players might be even more so. Imagine busting your tail every day in practice, seeing with your own eyes who the best quarterback is, only to watch him bend for reasons that have nothing to do with football. That corrodes trust. That breeds resentment. It tells the players that no matter how hard they work, no matter how much talent they show, it won't matter if it clashes with management's agenda. That kind of poison doesn't just go away. It lingers, infecting chemistry, dividing the team, and ultimately sinking the season before it even starts. And yet, through all of this, Shedeur Sanders is handling himself like a pro. No sideline tantrums. No passive-aggressive posts. No thinly veiled shots in press conferences. Just maturity, poise, and quiet leadership. He's showing the exact qualities you want in your franchise quarterback. Calm under fire, grace in chaos, eyes fixed on the bigger picture. And that's what makes the Browns look even worse. Because while Shedeur embodies professionalism, the organization embodies dysfunction. Fans see it. The media sees it. Players see it. The only people pretending otherwise are the ones inside Cleveland's ivory tower. And here's the kicker. This is bigger than Cleveland. This is bigger than one team or one rookie. This has become a national conversation about meritocracy versus politics, about whether NFL franchises actually value performance, or if they're so tangled up in egos and investments that they'd rather sabotage themselves than admit they were wrong. The Browns have accidentally become the face of this debate, and it's not a good look. The financial implications are already being felt. Ticket renewals are slowing. Merchandise sales tied to Shedeur are stalled, as fans refuse to buy until he's named the starter. Sponsorships are in jeopardy, with whispers that some brands are reevaluating their partnerships with a team that's now drowning in bad press. And let's not even get started on the national embarrassment. Cleveland, once again, has become a punchline. Late-night hosts, national talk shows, sports podcasts, they're all piling on, painting the Browns as the same old circus they've always been. And yet, through all the chaos, there's still hope, because this isn't over. The Browns are at a crossroads. They can continue down the path of dysfunction, doubling down on Flacco, Gabriel, and the illusion of stability, or they can pivot. They can embrace what's right in front of them. A young, gifted quarterback who has already shown he's ready for the moment. But let's be real, this is Cleveland. And if there's one thing this franchise is infamous for, it's picking the wrong path. History is littered with their missteps, their collapses, their what-could-have-beens. And if they don't course correct now, Shedeur Sanders could very well become another name on that tragic list. Except this time, The fans won't forgive them. Not when the talent is this undeniable. Not when the sabotage is this obvious. The real tragedy here? Shedeur Sanders doesn't just represent Cleveland's future. He represents the NFL's future. He's the kind of player who draws in new audiences, energizes younger fans, and bridges cultural divides. Benching him doesn't just hurt the Browns. It hurts the league. It alienates the people who are tuning in specifically to see him. It sends a message that the NFL doesn't care about showcasing its brightest talent if it interferes with the politics of the old guard. That's why the hashtag #FreeShedeur movement is bigger than football. It's not just about one quarterback. It's about fairness, transparency, and demanding that organizations put winning and merit above politics and pride. It's about fans flexing their newfound power and proving they can hold teams accountable in ways that hit where it hurts most, the bottom line. So, where do we go from here? Does Stefanski swallow his pride, admit he botched it, and give Sanders the keys? Does ownership step in and finally prioritize performance over politics? Or do they stay stubborn, watching their season collapse before it even begins? All while the rest of the league points and laughs? Because one thing's for sure, this isn't going away. Every game Sanders doesn't play will be a headline. Every snap Gabriel or Flacco takes will be scrutinized. Every loss will be traced back to that moment against the Rams when the Browns chose sabotage over merit. And the fans? They're not waiting patiently anymore. They're angry. They're mobilized. They're demanding change. And if Cleveland doesn't listen, the Browns won't just lose games. They'll lose their people. Let's keep peeling back this onion, because the Shedeur Sanders story is not just another headline. It's a saga that feels like it's being written in real time, and every chapter is more chaotic than the last. What happened in that preseason game against the Rams wasn't just a coaching decision. It was a defining moment. The kind of moment that either ignites a franchise's future or sends it spiraling deeper into dysfunction. And right now, Cleveland is choosing the spiral. Let's take a step back to appreciate just how wild this is. Shedeur Sanders wasn't supposed to be this good, this fast. He was a fifth-rounder. In the NFL's old-school thinking, that draft slot screams project quarterback. Someone who holds a clipboard for 2 years, gets mop-up duty, and maybe, just maybe, develops into something. But Sanders shattered that narrative the second he stepped onto practice field. Every report out of training camp said the same thing. He wasn't just keeping up with the veterans. He was outshining them. Faster reads, cleaner mechanics, better leadership. By the time preseason rolled around, it wasn't a question of if he'd play. It was a question of how long the Browns could justify keeping him off the field. And then came that Rams game. The perfect storm. Sanders was hot. He had been carving up defenses, showing poise in the pocket, flashing that swagger that makes you believe he was born for this stage. And then, the Browns had the chance to let him run the ultimate test, the 2-minute drill. That's where quarterbacks prove their worth. That's where legends are made. It's not about preseason wins and losses. It's about seeing if your guy has it. But when the moment came, Kevin Stefanski yanked Sanders off the field and put Dillon Gabriel in. Dillon Gabriel, a player who hadn't sniffed the kind of performance Sanders had all game. It was like watching a movie build to its climax, only for the director to cut to black. The theater erupted in boos, and the internet, it lost its collective mind. Why? Because everyone could see it for what it was. Not strategy, not protection, not development. Sabotage. Fans aren't dumb. They know politics when they see it. They know this wasn't about football. This was about the Browns front office protecting their egos, protecting the draft stock of Gabriel, protecting the investment in Joe Flacco, protecting themselves from looking foolish for not realizing sooner that their fifth-rounder was better than everyone else on the roster. Instead of embracing the gift they had in Shedeur Sanders, they shoved him aside, hoping no one would notice. But everyone noticed, and the fallout has been immediate. Fans flooded social media with demands. Free Shedeur. Players started whispering in the locker room. Even national media, usually quick to dismiss Brown's drama as just Cleveland being Cleveland, took this seriously. Suddenly, this wasn't just a preseason controversy. It was a referendum on the entire organization. Because let's be real, if a team can't recognize talent when it's staring in the face, What does that say about their leadership? What does that say about their priorities? And what does that say to the players in that locker room who bust their tails every day, only to see politics win out over merit? That's the thing. The Browns didn't just bench Shedeur Sanders. They benched the idea of meritocracy. They bench hope. They bench the very concept that the NFL sells itself on. The best players earn the spotlight, and fans aren't tolerating it. They're boycotting. They're withholding money. They're threatening to turn off games until Sanders starts. And here's the scary part for Cleveland. The NFL is a business built on eyeballs and wallets. Once fans start pulling both away, it doesn't matter how much pride ownership has. The dollars will dictate change. But for now, the Browns are digging in. Stefanski is doubling down on his coach speak. Ownership is hiding behind platitudes about competition and development. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is handling himself like a consummate professional, saying all the right things, keeping his focus sharp, refusing to fan the flames. And in doing so, he looks like the only adult in the room. It's almost cinematic. The rookie quarterback, forced into silence, carrying himself with dignity, while the franchise around him burns in dysfunction. Fans have latched onto that. He's not just their quarterback anymore. He's their symbol. A symbol of what they want their team to be. Talented, fearless, and unshackled from politics. And that's why this story is exploding beyond football. This isn't just about Cleveland. It's about every fan who's ever felt like their team made decisions for reasons that had nothing to do with winning. It's about every player who's ever been buried on a depth chart because of politics. It's about every moment where common sense clashed with ego, and ego won. The Browns are now the poster child for everything fans hate about the NFL. The locker room fractures make it even worse. Reports say some players were visibly frustrated when Sanders got benched. You don't need sources to see it. You could read it in their body language. Because players know who gives them the best shot. They know who's earning respect in practice. And when leadership ignores that, it erodes the foundation of trust. A divided locker room is a losing locker room, and the Browns just handed themselves a blueprint for collapse. But here's the crazy irony. Shedeur Sanders himself might come out of this looking like a legend before he's even taken a regular season snap. Every day he handles this with professionalism. Every moment he shows restraint while fans rage on his behalf. He builds credibility. He builds loyalty. He builds an aura. By the time he does finally get a shot, and make no mistake, it's coming. He'll be walking into the game with the weight of an entire movement behind him. The Browns, on the other hand, they're on the verge of becoming the villains in their own story. Every game they play without Sanders will be dissected. Every mistake by Flacco or Gabriel will be magnified. Every loss will be traced back to that one moment against the Rams when they benched their best quarterback for reasons no one can justify. And this is Cleveland we're talking about. A franchise already synonymous with dysfunction. A fan base already hardened by years of heartbreak. But this feels different. This feels like the line in the sand. Fans aren't just disappointed this time. They're furious. They feel disrespected. And that's not the kind of wound that heals quickly. So here's the crossroads. The Browns can course correct, admit they screwed up, and hand the keys to Shedeur Sanders, or they can keep doubling down on politics, watching their locker room splinter, their fan base revolt, and their season slip through their fingers. One path is scary but promising. The other is safe but doomed. And if history tells us anything, Cleveland has a knack for picking doom. But here's the twist. This isn't just about Cleveland anymore. The NFL is watching. Other teams are watching. Fans across the country are watching. Because this controversy has exposed something rotten at the core of the league. How often politics trumps performance, and how little say fans usually have. The hashtag #FreeShedeur movement isn't just about one player anymore. It's a warning shot to the entire NFL. A declaration that fans won't tolerate being ignored, not when the evidence is this obvious. The Browns thought they could control the narrative. But the truth? They've lost it. And every day Shedeur Sanders sits on that bench, the movement grows stronger, louder, more impossible to ignore. So what happens next? Does Stefanski finally crack under the pressure? Does ownership relent when the dollars start disappearing? Or does Sanders himself step into the spotlight with a statement that blows this wide open? However it plays out, one thing certain. This story isn't fading. It's escalating. And when it finally explodes, the fallout will reshape not just the Browns, but the entire NFL.